Hey, happy Friday, everybody. And oh my gosh, have we got a show for you today? Because it has been a hell of a week in the soap opera I like to call the days of our Montecito lives. And just so you know exactly what is coming up, hold on. I'm trying to, yep, here we go. Yeah, Prince. Oh, no, wrong one. Sorry, guys. Again, it's just me. Ben is not here, so forgive me. Today's rundown, we are going to go through what Prince Harry said on stand versus what really happened in life. Or, as I should say, what happened between Mr. Mischief and Charlotte G. String Griffiths, the reporter for the Daily Mail. And did he commit perjury? Then, next up, we've got the Sussex spin machine out in full force. As you know, it was not a great week for old Hazza and Maggie. And so, what did they do? They defied logic and they went right in to Vanity Fair to a writer who clearly didn't do any research and got themselves a fabulous puff piece that blows our imagination. It really is insanity. And Tom and I will sort out why. Then we've got my stories this week of Meghan and Harry not invited to the Met Gala. I will tell you why. And then Tom, whose sister Plum used to go every year and still has a standing invite, we'll get into his thoughts. Also, we've got why the royals, the real royals, King Charles and Prince William, will likely never be in a room with their former friends, the Clintons, again. And after all of that, let's take it back to Princess Beatrice and Eugenie. Are they or are they not going to Royal Ascot? They were disinvited. Now, apparently, they're invited. Tom has the scoop. So let me bring in old Tom. Hold on. Boop. Hi, Tommy.
Hi, honey. How's it going?
Fabulous. So you were in the courtroom. You've been following this crazy thing of a court case of Harry and his cohorts against Associated Newspapers, the Daily Mail. And why don't you tell me what Harry claimed about Charlotte Griffiths?
So it's complicated to say, exactly what he said. So he was very guarded and very careful about what he said. And on the stand, basically, the overriding position of what he said all along is he said that the Daily Mail side have consistently argued, look, you had a leaky circle, you had a leaky group of mates. This was 20 years ago. There were all kinds of people wandering in and out of your circle, and some of those were journalists. And Harry consistently denied that he was friends with journalists or that any of his friends were friends with journalists. And he was specifically asked about sending a message under the pseudonym of Mr. Mischief. And he just looked blank and said, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never used that name. Then we had the testimony of Charlotte Griffiths. So Charlotte Griffiths is the editor at large for the Mail on Sunday. At that time, she was the diary editor of the Mail on Sunday. Now, it's important to understand that the Mail on Sunday, in a funny way, what people always say is that the Daily Mail is kind of, or was, not so much anymore, but was traditionally obsessed by race. It was absolutely obsessed by race. Everything was about race. And it was, in the old days, not anymore, it was considered a racist newspaper. It would often write, provocative dog whistle type headlines, right? The Mail on Sunday is obsessed with class. It is absolutely obsessed with class. And the Mail on Sunday's USP has always been this kind of weapons grade social gossip about what the posh people are getting up to. And so that context is kind of really important to understand. So Charlotte Griffiths was a mate of Chelsea's at Leeds University. I think I'm correct in saying, no, Cressida's at Leeds University. She was a mate of Cressida's. So she was in that kind of high society circle. And she just said, look, I got these stories from hanging out with Harry and William and his mates. And she told this incredible story about how she went to a dinner party and Prince William turned up and said, oh God, I'm awfully sorry I'm late, but Catherine's got terrible morning sickness. And this was 3 days before the pregnancy was announced. And she was like, I was at a party with my friends socially, so I didn't tell the newspaper. And I got a major bollocking from the newspaper because this was obviously a huge story. Then fundamentally, Harry said, no, you didn't. You got all of your stories. The only way you could have found out these stories about me was through using unlawful means. And she said, I dispute that. And then on the last day, closing bombshell, a big ta-da, a big boom, curtain drop, she files these messages, which we're going to get into.
Before we get into them, I just want to add, he did actually, there was one quote on Stan where he said, you know, I might have met her once, but the second I found out she was a journalist, I cut her off. Which these messages that Tom is talking about actually prove it to be true because, well, Tom, thankfully on his Substack, printed them all out. And now we are going to go through them. Now, Tom, I love you because you also said before all these start, Harry looks like a fool to have ever been persuaded to bring this case, because we're going to get into this after, because either he has an addled memory from all those years of partying, or he's a blatant liar. Let's start with the first one that you did. On the 4th of December, 2011, Harry wrote what?
So, yeah, it's important to note that it looks from these messages like it's Harry who initiates this conversation. So he writes, it's H, in case you were confused by the name and picture, X. Now, we think this is when he was on Facebook using the name Spike something. And he had this fake Facebook account that he used to communicate with people. So obviously she, very cool, leaves it to the next day and replies, hello, Mr. Mischief.
Oh, wait, I'll do Charlotte, Tom.
Oh, you do Charlotte.
Hello, Mr. Mischief. And she talks about the photo. And then she goes, what a fun weekend of naughtiness. Can't we all get up to no good in the countryside every weekend, damn it? Smooches, CG string, XXX. Over to you, Tom.
Okay, so that is that there's so much to unpick in that. So now I did go to Harry's side for comment about this. And what they say, yeah, this is exactly what he said. He met her once at this party. He did not know that she was a journalist. And when he found out, he cut contact with her. He never used the name Mr. Mischief. She just referred to him in the call. It wasn't like a pseudonym that he was using. So they defend themselves on that. And they say that Harry, it meshes with everything that Harry said in his witness box. But I think that a dispassionate observer would agree that he is being, at best, economical with the truth in the witness box. But hey, you're not going to go into the witness box and help the other guy out.
Nope.
So, I mean, you know, fundamentally, the bigger problem, as you said at the beginning, is why bring this ridiculous case? But I do understand that in the witness box, he had to kind of stick it up. So here's what he said in response. And it's very interesting. I want to get into it a bit. Haha, it was you in the blue Golf that pulled over to let me and Arthur pass, no? I did beat him, but by accident, I think. Drove most of the way with my eyes closed till I found myself eating pizza with Skip, of all people, and that's Tom in Skip, another friend of his at the time. Was without doubt the best of those weekends I've been to. What a crowd. Never laughed so much in 24 hours. Mr. Mischief, how do I get that title? I was surely no worse than anyone else. Oh, apparently Cinderella's shoe was found outside that door. So, relax. Please stop panicking.
Which, by the way, of course, the next day, again, keeping it cool, Charlotte says, yep, that was me. My windows were so steamed up. And I'm afraid my little Golf GTI was just no match for your bloody Audi. And I had a children of men moment. How did you not end up eating Chinese? You must be mad. I dominated a duck pancake or two or five. And Mr. Mischief is definitely a compliment, by the way. You weren't worse than anyone else. We all competitively out naughtied each other, which is why we all had so much fun. And just aside, few about the shoe. I was very worried you'd have to spend a fortune picking up the phone and ordering a new pair of freebies from Amanda. XX. P.S. Speaking of which, did you manage to get your new phone number organized?
So, I mean, again, it's like absolutely fascinating, this conversation. And, you know, I think that the Mail have played in true showbiz style. They've saved this bombshell for last to completely color whatever the judge decides. I think the Mail have won in the court of public opinion. I find it extraordinary in Harry's text, particularly, that he's driving, that there doesn't seem to be any security, that it's all quite chaotic, that he's clearly been off his head, basically, on one thing or another, and he's getting in the car the next day. Obviously, let alone the CG string thing, but we'll get into that. So then, in response to all this, Harry then comes back. Wish it had been Chinese, but Skip wouldn't allow it. No new phone number yet, but long story. Serious withdrawal symptoms still. I had to make polite conversation with strange people at a dinner last night, begging them for money for charity. Now, one of my Substack people messaged me and said they think that's Centibale. They'd done a bit of maths on the court circular, and it looks like he had a Centibale dinner that night. Really fun, not. Reunion with Josh sounds fun. Hope work isn't too dull wherever you are. Now, this is the absolutely pivotal bit. What does this mean? Hope work isn't too dull wherever you are. Are they seriously suggesting that she lied to him about her job, that she was evasive about her job, or did he know what her job was? He clearly knows that she has a job, right? He clearly knows that she's not just some trust fund kid without a job, because he mentions work. So is it really feasible that Charlotte Griffiths would have been able to lie to this whole group of people about what her job was? And this, beyond the incredible insight into their lives and the salaciousness of the messages, that is an absolutely very important factor in this. Is the judge going to look at this and go, I think he did know she was a journalist? Because remember, this is not a jury trial. This is one judge.
The other thing is that you brought up, and I really want to pound home on this one. They were friends. She was friends with that group for years. Did she? Is Harry trying to say she pulled the wool over everyone's eyes for years, even though her name came out every week in a national paper? It's ridiculous. But the other thing is Centibale. You know, he's mocking his duties at the charity he claimed to love so much, and that he now really wants to spend his time basically asking people for money. So Charlotte, on the 7th of December, and again, we go days. I'm going to skip over some of these if you don't mind. She's talking about hibernating in the frozen wasteland of Parsons Green. Ooh. And I think a team reunite might be in order before the weekend's out. No. Okay, I'm unimpressed with your skippy surfing, blah, blah, blah. And then she goes, damn you, you bloody maverick. And now you're all heading to the BVI, British Virgin Islands. Double trumped, double humph. Thirsty Thursday plans? X.
And just before I read Harry's response, so the British Virgin Islands was part of the precursor to the trip to Vegas, where he was photographed naked. So this was quite a wild bunch, and there were photographs published at the time, later, that were ripped off this fake Facebook account that he had. So Harry says, I win, right? Me, no, heading to the BVI's, got too much shit to do. Got a dinner with some friends. Going to be hungover again for the third day running. You missed a good party last night. Skippy was on great form. Again, that's Tom Inskip, who he since fell out with as he said in his court testimony, he's one of the people who he fell out with because he believed they were leaking information to a journalist. Well, maybe he was, I don't know. Moi, XXX. And then Charlotte replies on the 22nd of January, 2012.
Yes. Charlotte, in a new year, by the way, this all started again in December. Charlotte says, H-bomb, we missed you so much at Arthur's last weekend. Skip cracked out some serious movies, but I did pack for my 3-week skiing holiday after a night with them at the box and forgot to pack skis, boots, jumpers. Basically, I've been very cold since. Goddamn drunken packing. Anywho, after some shopping in Valdez and Maribel, yeah, casual, whatevs, I've arrived in Closters and been watching some Cintabali snow polo. Does that mean you're here and I can dominate you off the black runs / steal one of your ski boots and feel Ira's non-guilty?
So again, lots to unpack there for those not familiar with the social life of the British upper class. So Arthur is Arthur Landon, who's one of the richest men in England, who's a filmmaker. Skips, we've said, is Skippy. The Box is a good fun nightclub in Soho that's kind of burlesque club that I think now has a branch in New York, right? And it's quite sort of chic and fun at this time. Valdez is Val d'Isère. Maribel is another ski resort in the Alps, again very beloved by this group. Closters, of course, etc., etc., etc. And then Harry replies, haha, Charty, I wish I was there, sugar, but unfortunately stuck in Cornwall doing army stuff. Otherwise, I would have been playing and then drinking under the table, obviously. The whole thing raised a load of money, so I'm pretty happy. Just wish I could have been there, especially now that you're there. Do you ever work? Bummed beyond belief to have missed Arthur's as well. I've been seriously busy since I last saw you, but plan on getting back in the mix for Feb. You best be around. Hope you're really well, Griff. Miss our movie snuggles. I'm off comms all week in case you think I'm being rude. Keep me posted. So again, really interesting. He seems to know that she has a job. He clearly knows that her surname is Griffiths. She hasn't lied about her surname. She hasn't lied about her identity in any way. So, what Harry's team said to me in response when I went to them and said, what about these quotes? They said, basically, she was a honey trap, was basically the words they used. And I'm like, it's crazy why would you bring this person to court? Like, he clearly, I'm not saying that I don't know whether he had a sexual relationship with her, right? But from the tenor of these messages, it's clear they fancied each other at a minimum. And it's clear there was some flirting. Why would you bring that person to court? Because he didn't have to enumerate articles by Charlotte Griffiths. He could have stuck to the article by Rebecca English, where she quite clearly, in my opinion, blags flight details off a guy in South Africa. I think he's probably going to win on that one. Why bring this woman to court? Did he forget? He couldn't have forgotten, because all this stuff is filed in discovery, right? You can see all this stuff. And more importantly, I think Harry was incredibly ill-advised to bring this case. But Doreen Lawrence, I think it is an absolute travesty. And, Doreen Lawrence is one of the co-plaintiffs here. She may not be as well known in America. She's incredibly well known in the United Kingdom. Her son was killed in this horrific racist murder. The Daily Mail, as I said, having had a reputation for not being great on race matters, basically this was the moment that they reformed and they went into bat. They named the people who they said had killed her son on the front page, challenged them to sue them. It was an amazing turning point in British race history. Right. And I feel so sorry for Doreen Lawrence that she has been persuaded to join this on the basis of Gavin Burrows' completely fantastical witness statement that he then disavowed and just said was made up by this other guy, Graham Johnson, this phone hacker. I mean, the whole thing is an absolute disaster.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I will add that Dan Wooten has said it was an open secret at the Daily Mail that Harry and Charlotte had been involved at some point. But again, they are very flirty. And I do think that Harry and his barrister, David Sherborne, should have absolutely thought twice. I think Harry was, he's easily led, as we have talked about this before. He likes a firm hand. And David Sherborne has made millions off of Harry. He's taken the cases not on an
40
hourly
million,
basis.
40 million he's made, according to Tom Bauer.
Exactly. So he's taking them. If he wins, he gets a cut, and he's convincing Harry to keep going. And this is a massive misstep, and it involved yet another black eye for the Sussexes, whom had a very bad week. Meghan, misstep after misstep. She's still reeling from the Variety article. Every day she's trying to post something new. Like, look, this is how we make a flower arrangement. And then they went ahead. Hold on, guys. I'm again doing this by myself, so give me a minute. Then the PR team, which Bauer actually wrote about quite a lot, put up this and had a Vanity Fair reporter basically kind of snooked her and said, here's an exclusive. Guess what? With Love, Meghan isn't dead yet. As ever is making hand over fist of money. They're selling out, blah, blah, blah. And they also included a bunch of other claims that were, what's the word, dubious. Now, with Love, Meghan, let's be very clear. She has already said she wants to do smaller format so that it would come into, it would be Instagram, TikTok, whatnot. But let's be real clear. Even the specials, they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars a day on each episode that they filmed. That money is never going to happen. My bet is if it does happen again, and I doubt that it will, because that Christmas special was just a turd in the punch bowl, especially with ratings and with critics, that it's not going to happen. So, Tom, what else in that article made your eyebrows hit the roof? Because if I didn't have so much Botox, my eyebrows would have been off my face.
Well, I think the main thing about it is that it just seemed really incredible that a, once very respected and serious would be the wrong word, but, diligent publication like Vanity Fair was prepared to publish this nonsense about the amount of jam that they've allegedly sold. I mean, as Matt Donnelly said when he was on the show earlier this week, on the Royalist, on my show, he said, I think the phrase, he had a very good way of putting it, but he said something like, if they were going from record-breaking jam haul to record-breaking jam haul, why would Netflix choose to divest from them? In what world of quantum physics is that remotely a possibility? Mm-hmm. And I found it really strange that the Vanity Fair were prepared to run all this stuff. And I can only assume that they have a big interview in the pipeline with her or something. That's all I can assume.
Yeah, but the last time they did a big interview with her, they kind of saw right through her. So I'm hoping that it's not this person. But excuse me. The other thing is that really struck me was, well, right now they're just focusing on philanthropy and this as ever business, and they're just really what they've always wanted to do. This is all they ever wanted to do. Just focus on charity and so now it's come full circle. They're back to their original plan. And you just think, no, they're here because everything else has just failed spectacularly. And this is a segue for us, because do you remember last year, Tom? Last year when she decided she was going to be the fashionista, and we've talked about it before, where every time she went out, every trip she went on, it was on Shop My so that it would sell out and she could get some money. Then, of course, she shows up into Paris, uninvited, I might add, to Pier Paolo Piccioli, to the Balenciaga show. And kind of sucks all the air out of the room, and especially pisses off Anna Wintour, because Anna is never late. And it's courtesy to sit 20 minutes before start time so that bugs can be worked out and the show can go on. Meghan came just at the last minute. Now, please tell me you remember all those stories about her getting into fashion and trying to be a brand ambassador for Dior. You do, don't you?
I do, certainly.
Mm. So the best thing about this is that she thought this was going to be her next big thing. And then, of course, we had this, didn't we? Hold on. Boop. She wasn't invited to the Met Gala yet again. The only thing that people give a hoot about in fashion, if you're anyone who's anyone in Hollywood, in fashion, you go there. And I've had people say, well, Paula, oh my God, she's never been invited. Why would she go now? She's doing this. And you're thinking she desperately wanted to go. And in fact, she actually thought she might have a chance to go because the co-chairs are Beyonce. Hold on, Beyonce is on the phone. And Venus Williams, who's sisters with her best friend, Venus. Now, Tom, your sister Plum has gone many times and has a standing invite to go. What do you think is the reason why Meghan was not invited? Because I've said all the reasons, but what do you think?
I think that ultimately the Met Gala, don't forget, at its core is a charitable fundraiser. Like, it raises millions and millions and millions of dollars. So, and that's really at the heart of its DNA. And of course, it's become this big kind of celebrity pageant, and it's very prestigious to be invited, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that ultimately, either you've got to be one thing or the other. Either you've got to be unbelievably famous, incredibly fashionable, or a major philanthropist. And if you look at that Venn diagram, I mean, the reality is that Meghan just doesn't fit into any of those three circles now. And really, you probably kind of need to be in two of the circles, ideally three, but very few people are going to be in three. But you'd want to be in at least one of those circles. And Meghan's star is undeniably on the decline now. The show wasn't a hit. People don't seem to particularly want to be associated with the brand. And again, as Matt said on the show last week, that the invite to a simple social invite to the Kardashian party became a 5-car PR pileup. So do you really need to take that risk? You certainly don't if you're the Met Gala. But we could certainly ask Plum about it next week on the Royalist podcast, Paula.
Yes.
I'm hoping that we're going to all be able to talk together as part of ongoing developments.
Yes, I would love that. I've got so many questions. But also, you bring up a good point. Anna wants attention for the Met Gala itself, for the charity, for the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And the problem is, every time Meghan is involved, it just seems like it becomes all about Meghan and minorly Harry, but really just about Meghan, And it's fascinating to me that because I think she is undeniably world famous. I think you could go almost anywhere in the world and say, do you know who Meghan Markle is? And they would say yes. However, I don't think it's associated with good things anymore. I think it's associated with kind of being a social climber, being icky. She gives everyone the ick at this point, except for the Sussex squad. But so much so that, her girls' weekend in Australia still has not sold out. I'm still getting emails and texts from people every day who have gone through the vetting process, and they're still getting texts going, we think we can squeeze you in. This is only 300 people, Tom. This is not 3,000 like Gwyneth Paltrow had during her Goop event in Sydney.
I know. It's very shocking. If you can't sell 300 tickets at £1,000 a head, I mean, what can you sell?
I know. But what else is fascinating is that the people don't want to be associated with her because they kind of don't want the ick rubbing off. And you see this with this other story that came out that I did yesterday, and it was about Hillary Clinton and how, and Bill Clinton, how the king and, oh, let me add this to the stage again, the king and Prince William, or as I like to call them, the real royals, will likely never agree to be in a room with the Clintons again. Now, they had been very friendly. There were several state dinners during his presidency. She did an event with Prince William in 2014 in New York. And then Meghan entered the family and she threw her weight behind Meghan. And the issue, well, let's start with Bill. No one can go near Bill. And in fact, a lot of people can't go near Bill anywhere anymore because of his Epstein ties and what happened in the Epstein bunch. And well, Tom, you've talked about this, that King Charles can't afford to ever be around any Epstein person again. But wait, before you start, I want to tell everyone out there, of course, we know that King Charles is coming at the end of April to visit President Trump for a state dinner. That is diplomacy. That is his job. We know that Trump is all over the Epstein files as well. However, again, King Charles is the ultimate diplomat. He needs to smooth over UK and USA relations. And at this point in time, Donald Trump is the head of the USA. So let's go back to my original point, Tom. What do you have to say about King Charles ever being associated with that kind of thing socially again?
Charles has got to be incredibly careful because, contrary to what you're reading in the British newspapers, and the kind of international media that recycles the narrative of the royal rota, to read them, you think that everything's going brilliantly, that Charles is this steely and respected man, that he's dealt with everything marvelously. The reality, when you actually talk to human beings who live in the United Kingdom, if you go to a pub and talk to people, or even if you take the simple precaution of reading a YouGov poll, shows that the royal family is as unpopular as it's ever been. And that's almost entirely down to the incredible mismanagement of the Prince Andrew affair, where Charles just delayed and delayed and delayed doing anything about it. And the reality is that he now needs to be 100 miles from anybody associated with Jeffrey Epstein and any toxic, politically divisive figure. But Paula, I'm so sorry, you're going to have to let me go. So throw me out of your studio.
Wait, before you go, Beatrice and Eugenie, are they going to Ascot?
Well, again, that's a proxy, this thing appearing in the papers saying that they are going. That's not actually about whether they're going to Ascot or not. That is a proxy war between William and the King, because William quite clearly understands that that no member of the York family can be anywhere near the real royals, as we might put it. And Charles is still desperately hanging on to this delusion that he can present a united front. And we're going to see Charles trying to present that united front on Sunday at the Easter Sunday service. Beatrice and Eugenie obviously not going as the price of getting William and Catherine there. So, you know.
Well, all right, Tom. Thank you, my love. Mwah. I will talk to you this weekend. Happy Easter. Everyone else, I'm going to stick around to finish up the Hillary and Bill story because there is some real gossip there. Mwah. Bye, Tommy. Thank you. All right. So the other thing is, let me put this back on stage. Here we go. Because I got a lot to say about this. So obviously Bill's out. Then you got Hillary. All right. And Hillary took it upon herself to really shepherd Meghan and be her kind of mother hen. And she did it in a really obnoxious way for the royal family because you don't insert yourself into this situation. It's absolutely bonkers. I'm going to bring up this story that I actually wrote. It's for News Nation. It's also on my Substack, but it's bonkers. Hold on. Here we go. Give me a moment. Tom Bauer wrote in his book about how Hillary, yep, hold on, here we go, hold on. In Betrayal, he writes, on the 12th of November, Hillary Clinton, this is back in the day when they were still there, Hillary Clinton visited Meghan at Frogmore House. As Meghan unloaded her anxieties, Clinton offered her unqualified understanding. Meghan's treatment, Clinton believed, was heartbreaking and wrong in the politician's opinion. Meghan's meteoric rise was being crushed by the royal family. The Sussexes, she believed, were struggling to have a life of meaning and integrity on their own terms. And Clinton, it appeared, had willingly participated in Meghan's choreographed escape. Now, the other thing is, after Meghan and Harry did that horrific Oprah Winfrey interview, all right, after that, Clinton then offered her support for them and really came out and supported Meghan's truth. And it was just, it's interesting because Hillary was such a diplomat for so long. And this is so interesting that she would immediately take the side of Harry and Meghan over the royal family. Now, I believe it has something to do that it was during the time of BLM. It was during a time of a lot of pain in the United States. And I think Hillary wanted to show that she was taking the right side and taking the side of the African-American princess and American and all this stuff. But, you know, it's blown back in her face. This is the woman, Hillary, who once socialized with Princess Catherine and Prince William. This is the woman who also still is a huge part and founder of the Clinton Global Initiative. And it was a massive, massive misstep. And the family, the real royal family, is done. That's not going to happen because you'll see, I mean, look at William. William will not be near anyone that he thinks is loyal to Harry. Look at, again, how he's treating Eugenie and Beatrice. You know, he's like, no, you went over and visited them. Beatrice, you talked to them. No, we're done. I don't want Harry in mine or Catherine or my children's lives ever again. And so, you guys, this has been another episode of the Days of Our Montecito Lives. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what other questions you have, because I will sniff around, or Tom will make some calls and we'll find out for you. All right. Thank you. Ooh.